Section86.com. We're changing the world of podcasting one show at a time.
86 Productions.
Take what you wanna take, don't leave me here. Lasting leap years ever, your fear of the one and only love.
Hello and welcome to Off the Mark, the best podcast providing the most in-depth insight and analysis into the world of professional wrestling. On today's show, we have Aaron, Roger, and Doug to join Andrew as we discuss this month's View from the Turnbuckle. So, Aaron, what's the latest news?
Well, I think the saddest news is earlier this month, Mean Gene Okerlund passed away, and for a lot of people, he was the voice of our childhood. You know, you had him as not an announcer, but he was kind of the stick man. He was the one that gave the interviews with a lot of people, and you know, a lot of people watched him in WWF and then moved to WCW. And he was one of those guys that was a tentpole of the WWF. And, you know, when you think about, you know, in the 80s, you think about a Hogan or a Savage or Warrior. But one of the other people you think about, I would say, is somebody like a Bobby the Brain Heenan or a Mean Gene Okerlund. And it's, you know, very sad and unfortunate that he passed away when he did. But, you know, I have a lot of really great memories of him. And I you know, thoughts and prayers are with him and his family.
Yeah, this is a truly sad moment in the aspect of this. Mean Gene was a cornerstone of the wrestling announcers. Him and Bobby Heenan, just you can always think of all the great promos that were done with Mean Gene. It was always funny to hear him curse and make a mistake every once in a while. But I'll never forget the cream of the crop promo with Savage and Mean Gene and the NWO when they first arrived, and him being littered with trash and even telling Hogan that this is what he is. And truly will miss Mean Gene Okerlund.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the kind of the last voice of the golden era of wrestling is gone. You know, I always thought of Bobby Heenan and Gorilla Monsoon as kind of the premier commentary team of the golden age, with Mean Gene as the stick guy. And he's dead. And it's sad because, yeah, a lot of my childhood with Warriors' nonsensical promos or Hogan's ridiculous, you know, Mean Gene. I mean, he was the voice that we recognized. I remember in WCW when he went over there with Heenan, same type of deal. So it's sad that he's gone. It's another wrestling tragedy. I don't think he died young, so at least this is not a guy dying in his 30s or 40s, but it's still sad. He will be missed, and the memories are fantastic.
Yep, that's right. I completely agree with you guys. He is one of those guys that you would hear his voice and you're like, oh, you know, something big's about to happen, and then, you know, it was his time. So kudos to him. I just wish I had at one point some Mean Gene hamburgers, but oh well. So
anyone want to call the hotline?
Call the 900 number. Oh gosh, Aaron, remember when the 900 number fiasco at our house?
I do, yes.
Yes. All right, so let's move on to Kenta. He was granted his release. So Hideo Itami is no longer in the WWE or NXT or 205 Live. You know, Roger, was this his time to finally go?
Yeah, as I said at our Rumble recap, he looked washed. Like he looked bad. He looked unmotivated. He didn't look like he could move anymore. You know, I know during his prime, he was one of the best wrestlers in Japan, if not the world. Well, that was 10 years ago. And maybe going back to Japan will revitalize his career. Maybe it'll make things better for him. I don't know. I think this was the right move for both Hideo and the right move for WWE. It was time to part ways. They were never going to use him properly. Part of it was due to his injuries, but once he kind of got passed up in NXT, he never really recovered. So I think he was better than going to 205 Live. And, you know, I'm not sad to see him go. And hopefully he finds a spot in NJPW. I would love to see the old Kenta come back.
I thought he had a great match against Bobby Roode when we saw him in Chicago, and I think that was probably his marquee match that he was in WWE. He was had on some very many unfortunate injuries that kind of kept him back in. It seemed like every time he was about to get a push in NXT, he got injured. So I don't think he ever got to that point of where he could really showcase. But you know what? Hopefully, like Roger said, goes back to Japan and revitalizes his career there and can finish there at home.
Yeah, and I echo everyone's thoughts there. I really like Kenta, but yeah, I mean, injuries are, unfortunately, they can really hurt your career. They can actually help it though too, but I think for him it really hurt it. I personally don't see him leaving WWE for something like an AEW or Ring of Honor. I see him going back to Japan, going back to Pro Wrestling Noah, and making an even bigger mark there than what he did before.
All right. So Dean Ambrose and Ronda Rousey may leave after WrestleMania. Aaron, what's the word on the street about this?
Yeah, so we found out that Dean Ambrose is going to be leaving. WWE actually confirmed it, which was a really big surprise. And even with the Ronda Rousey thing, there were rumors that were circulating, and WWE came out and said, Ronda has a contract until 2020. It sounds like it's flexible, though. So if she does leave to, go and have a family, then, she has the ability to do that and then come back to WWE for her remaining year or two. So, we'll see what happens with that. I think the one thing, though, that is a little bit of a surprise is Dean Ambrose and the fact that they had announced it, because with Ambrose, you kind of looked at him as a staple of WWE. When after Cena left, or is, in the process of leaving, it went to Roman Reigns. And then after what happened with Reigns, kind of like, okay, well, it's Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose, then, those are going to be kind of the mainstays. Even if Ambrose isn't the feature player, he's a mainstay there. He's like a Roddy Piper, right? You may not think of him in the 80s, but, he's somebody that is always there. And unfortunately, he's going to be leaving. I think that he's a little bit burnt out. I think that he had time off and then he came back, and it's almost like, if you're working for a long time, then you take a week-long vacation, you come back to work with a renewed hatred of work. I think it was kind of that for Ambrose. He came back and he's like, wait, I actually liked my time off. I kind of want to go do that again. And I have all this money. I don't need to work necessarily, and I can come back whenever. He's a made name. He may not be a household name. He's not a John Cena, but he can go away for a long time and come back and then get a lot of money still. Or he can negotiate potentially and say, hey, AEW wants me, Ring of Honor wants me, WWE, what are you going to offer me? And so there's an option there for him to make even more money if he does come back much later on. But either way, I'm sad to see him go, but they weren't doing a whole lot with him creatively.
I agree a lot with what Aaron said, except for I think it was more of he comes back off of injury and it's like, all right, I'm ready to get back to work. And then they hand him this. And then they change it when Roman has his sickness, and then all of a sudden, he has a few matches with that little clean gimmick, and then the next thing you know, he's doing a promo in a cellar or a back room. It's like this doesn't make sense. Are we changing him again? And I think that's what it is. It's just there's no creative for him as of right now, and I think he's just kind of. Well, if you don't have anything for me, I'm ready to go. I don't have to be here. I think this is something that we'll see if it's there's some rumors that this is a work and it's just maybe deflect some of the attention away from Ronda Rousey. But at the same time, with AEW coming up and a lot of people very, very interested in that, let's see if he can go to another place and make his name there.
I'm not surprised that Ambrose is fed up, and I don't blame him actually in the slightest. If you kind of think back to WrestleMania 33, he was the workhorse of SmackDown and even the WWE. He carried that company after Cena went off to kind of go do his movies. He carried SmackDown. He helped establish that as a premier brand, was the champion, had a great feud with AJ Styles, and his reward at WrestleMania was an Intercontinental Championship match against Baron Corbin that was kicked to the pre-show. Talk about a slap in the face for all that you've done for us. Instead of letting him have one final match with AJ, and you decided to give that to Shane McMahon, who doesn't need a match with AJ Styles at WrestleMania, you kicked Dean Ambrose to the pre-show. I don't blame him for walking away. I think it's good for him. His return was blah. The heel turn was a wasted opportunity. Like Doug said, those promos. I mean, what was this gas mask thing? Did Vince have to get shots and decide that now Ambrose was going to talk about how unclean everyone was? I mean, it was just really dumb. They had nothing for him creatively. I'm glad he's leaving. It sucks what they did to him. Like Aaron said, he's a mainstay, except for, much like Piper, he was always overshadowed. He never really got his moment to shine except for that one time in 2016, and he tore it up. And his reward was being kicked to the pre-show. Good for Ambrose. I hope he either takes the time off that he needs and goes somewhere else, because I really think he might be like CM Punk and he might just be done. Like, he might just have lost his passion for wrestling after what WWE did to him. He might be like, I'm out. I don't need to do this anymore. He's probably done this for 20 plus years. So it wouldn't surprise me if he's done.
Yeah, it's sad to see that he's leaving, but we'll see what happens. I noticed how we barely touched on Ronda's situation. We were all talking about Dean because, yeah, Ronda's great and all, but realistically, she's not the type of wrestler Dean is. So it's sad to see that he's going to be leaving. So, but
I also don't think Ronda's even really done. Like, I think she's just going to be taking a break, whether that is to go spend time with family, because she's not used to this road schedule like Dean Ambrose is. She's used to fighting, once every 5-6 months in UFC. So she's been doing a lot of the Raws and a lot of the traveling and everything like that. I don't think she's used to it, and now she kind of burn out a little bit maybe, or just wants to be able to spend some time at home. She'll be back in the WWE eventually, and like Aaron said, her contract's still 2021 or 2020. She'll be back. It's just a matter of when.
Does anyone think she might be doing the Lesnar schedule?
I think she'll start to go to it.
Yeah, and especially, the rumors were, she wanted to start a family and everything. And, she's, I want to say, like 38 or so. She's at that age that you should have a child if you want to have one. So, that might be the time for her. And, whatever happens with that, I think that she will be back, and sooner rather than later. We'll see what happens with Dean. I think the biggest question, though, is, as I had alluded to earlier with Kenta, potentially going to AEW, that's a possibility potentially for Dean. He could go to AEW, just like that. There's some other talent that, are rumored to have requested releases or are saying, hey, I have other offers. There's another promotion that is potentially springing up. And I don't, Doug, I know that you're a really big fan of the Bucks and Cody and what they're doing. Do you think that there's going to be some talent that's going to be exiting WWE because there's a new upstart?
I think there's a lot of the younger talent that is going to be going. Having followed Cody for a while, he was stating and did an article stating that there's a lot of young talent reaching out to him, asking him how he did it, was it worth it, and what they should do and everything like that. One of that talent was Neville, and you saw what he did. He left, and now all of a sudden he's signed with AEW. You're going to see other people, and I'm especially showing like the people that are not necessarily getting fully over in NXT. I could very much see them go to an AEW to continue their namesake. They've got it with WWE, and now they want to further it. They know that if they get pulled up to the main roster, they're not going to do much. I could see a lot of the NXT talent like Sanity or other people that just can't get on the Raw show or SmackDown show go to an AEW, and I think this is good for wrestling in general.
I definitely think you're going to get guys who have been criminally underused to head to AEW. Ty Dillinger, I think, is a very big potential to say, hey, WWE doesn't have anything for me. I don't even necessarily think you're limited to guys like Shinsuke Nakamura. I wouldn't be surprised if he decided to give them a run before maybe he went back to Japan. Maybe a guy like Rusev once he gets tired of the stop and starts. Bobby Roode, Chad Gable. I mean, there are guys who's like, hey, we know how talented these guys are. Obviously, the Revival, a lot of tag teams. It's good to have options. It's good to have more exposure, more choices. But if you look at the wave of NXT guys coming through, there's only a certain amount of roster spots and a certain amount of TV time. That means some of these guys are going to get bumped out of their current slots. Those guys probably not going to be content with that. Zack Ryder, who knows? Maybe he decides he wants to leave. I mean, I just think there's a lot of guys who are going to be like, hey, if you're not using me, let me go. And I think that's a good thing. Because right now, if you call up the NXT guys, I have no idea where they slot into the roster. The spots are packed. So there's got to be some alternative option.
Well, rumor has it with Zack Ryder that WWE offered him a little bit more money so he could buy more action figures. So I think he's going to stay for a little bit longer.
Oh, I heard that he was mad because even those things wouldn't put him over. But yeah, AEW, I'm really weird about it because some days I'm like, this is a great idea. But at the same time, it's like, well, remember Ted Turner said he was getting in the wrestling business. That's the famous line. Do you think that, that they'll just say, no, we're kind of over it because we're losing so much money. At what point do they say, okay, if you don't turn a profit by 5 years, we're going to call it? Like, I guess that's my thing. Like, and also, is it going to work? Because I don't know how profitable Ring of Honor is, because I think that AEW do something similar to what they do, where they have a show and then they tape their TV and then they may do a house show here and there. And I'm wondering if that's what the plan is currently. There are some things that sound great. The health insurance sounds great. And then also being able to still wrestle the indies is great as well. But at what point do they say we need more control over this? I mean, I guess that's my mindset. And at what point will Cody and the Young Bucks say to one of their friends, "Hey, we can't hire you because we're tapped out on money"? I guess that's my dilemma. But
why would you think they're going to be tapped out on money? The Khans are rich.
I know they're rich, but Ted Turner's rich.
We're not talking like a little bit of money. We're talking these are billionaires.
Yeah, they got more money than Vince does.
Yeah.
Well, they do, but at some point, let's say you're losing. We'll say, like, do you think that they would mind if, hey, what they're putting into this and they're not getting a lot in return? They maybe, we'll say they're losing, I'll just say $10 million a year. Do you think that at some point they'll be like, listen, I don't want to lose $10 million a year. We need to turn a profit now, or start
$10 million a year would not be that much money, though.
That's a drop in the bucket. Yeah.
Okay.
You think about new businesses, like look at Microsoft. When they had to do Bing, they lost like $250 million. Like that is kind of the accepted losses of a startup company. And you look at like WCW, they never went out of business because Ted Turner got sick of it. He lost his company. And AOL decided they didn't want wrestling anymore. It had nothing to do with Turner. So if the Khans are wrestling fans, they're going to keep AEW alive as long as they want it because they got the Jaguars. That means the NFL money is going to keep on rolling in.
And it sounds like I believe it's Tony, I want to say his name is. Sounds like he is a huge wrestling fan. And I mean like giant wrestling fan. So to him, this is kind of a dream come true. And the fact that he's able to get this type of talent, the Young Bucks and Cody and Jericho in particular are, fairly big in the wrestling world. And Jericho may not be necessarily a household name, but, he is a very large name in the world of wrestling. And I think that that's something that they were very interested in doing. And they've already added a few other pieces, some, really good hands. And if they're able to pull some talent from WWE, I think that they could have a decent run. I'm not saying that it would be WCW. I think that they could do better than TNA and maybe even better than Ring of Honor. It's just as a matter of, are they going to have interesting stories? Is it going to be accessible? Is it going to be easy? No barriers that you really have to jump over. If it's on YouTube, that's fine. I'm totally okay with it. If it's on network television, cool, even better. But it's just a matter of, how are we able to consume the content? And are you giving me compelling enough stories for me to be interested in watching? If you look at what WWE was doing with Becky and Ronda, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, that's compelling. That's something I'm very interested in watching. If AEW does a very similar thing, great. I'm going to watch that. But if it's going to be, indie-ish, with some of the stuff in Ring of Honor or TNA, I don't know if it's going to be compelling for the average wrestling fan.
I think this is something that we're going to have to do a special on later on this year. I think it's because I think that'll be an interesting debate, especially after we see Double or Nothing, which is in May, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So I think it'll be something fun to do later on in the year to see what their plan is like long term. So, anyways, let's talk about the WWE Universal title. Of course, Lesnar has it. I mean, what else should I have to say about that? Brock did defeat Finn, and but the rumor is, and I'm wondering, I think this is true. Do you think that Seth Rollins really will take on Brock, Aaron?
I don't think there's a question in my mind that he's going to be taking on Brock Lesnar. That he's not going to be taking him on. Brock is the logical choice. There's no other opponent I believe WWE could have for Brock Lesnar other than Roman Reigns coming back from cancer, which I don't think is going to happen anytime soon. I think it has to be Seth Rollins. I think it's Lesnar Rollins at the main event or the semi-main. You have to do it. And I also think that you have to put Rollins over. I was actually thinking about this, I think it was yesterday, that, Lesnar has defeated one-on-one Reigns and Ambrose at WrestleMania. And Rollins is going to be facing him one-on-one. Now, obviously there was the triple threat, but one-on-one, Rollins would be able to say, potentially, hey, I was able to actually take down Lesnar. If there was ever like a feud with Ambrose or with Reigns, he'd be able to say that. Like, I was able to take down Lesnar at WrestleMania, something that you guys were not able to do. So, I don't know. I feel like it has to be Rollins, and Rollins has to pick Lesnar.
It seems interesting that we've already had Becky come out and challenge Ronda Rousey. So you have a SmackDown person jumping to Raw. To have the same thing that both Royal Rumble winners take on Raw champions, does that say something about your SmackDown? Or do you go for Seth versus Daniel Bryan, which would be, it could be a very good dream match kind of setup. But honestly, I think the money is in Seth Rollins versus Brock Lesnar. Here's the guy that you are going to now make your company being Seth Rollins now that Roman Reigns is out with cancer and we don't know how long he's going to be away. Seth Rollins is the future of the WWE. You have him take on Brock. It'll be interesting when we get to our WrestleMania pick'ems, though, to see if any of us do choose Seth Rollins or Brock, because it just seems, and Roger's pointed this out many times, why do you keep betting against Brock Lesnar? Can they afford to make Seth be that one person where look how many times it took Roman Reigns to beat Brock Lesnar? Can Seth be the one and only person to beat him basically on his first try?
Had Doug not stolen my opening line, I was going to ask you guys, why do you never learn from your mistake? How many times do you have to bet against Brock Lesnar before you realize he is never guaranteed to lose? There are few things in life that are guaranteed: death, taxes, and Brock Lesnar. That's about it.
Roger, didn't you pick Brock Lesnar for WrestleMania last year?
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did. No, I'm sorry. No, you didn't. I'm sorry. You that's right. You picked Roman Reigns. So that's my question, right? Like you picked Reigns as opposed to Lesnar.
I made the mistake of going against Brock Lesnar. I should have known better. Brock Lesnar wins because when you guys picked Dean Ambrose, I said Brock's going to win easily, and he dominated. And then he beat Goldberg, and then he beat Roman, and we were all shocked because we should stop assuming that Rollins is going to win. There is a way to make someone look good in defeat. Like Roman last year didn't look good in defeat because it was a terrible match and it was really stupid, and it was him kicking out of 6 F5s. If Rollins, had a similar situation where he passed out from blood, kind of like Austin at 13, he would still look like a monster despite, falling in vain to Lesnar, and then at SummerSlam maybe he finishes the job. Having said that, if you have Seth Rollins not go after Brock Lesnar, he looks like a coward. Like 100%, he would look like someone who is scared of Brock and is going after the smaller champion who he thinks has a better chance of, which is a fine move for a heel. It's not a fine move for a guy who's supposed to be your heroic babyface and potential next face of the company. So without a question, he needs to be going after Brock Lesnar. Now, whether or not he'll win, we can talk about that when we get to the pick'ems.
So early picks right now. Will you pick Lesnar against Rollins if that's the case?
Early picks are Brock Lesnar wins. I don't really care about the opponent.
Who would defeat Lesnar for the title?
Brock Lesnar.
He's just going to retire with the title.
I mean, he has been booked similar to, your Mike Tyson at the end of Punch-Out or M. Bison at the end of Street Fighter. He is that guy that he doesn't need to repeatedly lose, because when you beat him, it is supposed to be special. So it is never a guarantee that he is going to lose. So it's not like Rollins has to win this match. I think he should, because I think you should put him over. But I also thought you were going to put over Roman that year, and he didn't last year. So I don't necessarily know that you have to have even Rollins beat him on his second try, because I think they fought once before and it went in like a no DQ. Undertaker interfered like 2015 or something like that. Strowman's obviously fallen to him. You have a host of guys who Lesnar could still beat. As much as everyone has hated the whole Brock Lesnar title run, my issue has never been what Brock has done with the title. My issue has been they never built to the contender while Brock was gone. That has always been the problem. And Brock dropping the championship isn't going to change that, because if you have the champion every week, but you're not building, compelling stories, don't give a crap who holds that stupid red belt. Build good stories, build interesting feuds. That's the problem. Lesnar being an in-game boss is a great idea, because who beats him theoretically is going to go over. Why did it matter that he beat Undertaker at 30? Because the streak was put over 20 years. You have to make things matter, and Brock Lesnar matters. How many guys in WWE right now can you say actually matter?
Daniel Bryan, Seth Rollins.
Steph matters because of the last year. Prior to him in that gauntlet match, he was dead in the water.
What about AJ Styles?
AJ matters. Yeah, absolutely.
Velveteen. Can I throw NXT in there?
No, you cannot.
Okay, then all right. Dang it. All right, but yeah, that's a tough. What you've been saying. Yeah, it makes sense. I'm just gonna say it right now. I do think Seth will win, but I don't think it'll be clean. I'll just say that. I think that there'll be shenanigans either with Reigns or maybe Dean as a one last. You couldn't win this on your own. Bye. But all right. But anyways,
that would be a terrible mistake to ruin Seth's moment with a shenanigan finish. If you're gonna put him over Lesnar, you need to put him over as the guy who finally conquered him.
As in, like, clean.
Yes, as in he needs to hit him with a curb stomp in the middle of the ring and say, "I beat you. I am the guy. I am the new face of the company." There doesn't need to be a stupid Braun Strowman standing there with his briefcase moment. There doesn't need to be a cash-in or interference. Let him be the guy who finally says, I'm the only guy to say I beat Brock Lesnar cleanly, ignoring Triple H doing it at 29 because we'll just never talk about that again. Like, he needs to be the guy who slayed the beast, because if he's the face of your company, that means he should be the guy who is able to do this.
All right. You talked about the red belt earlier, so let's talk about the wood belt. What do you think about Brian did beat AJ, of course, with help with Roman. But do you think that Rowan, not Roman, Rowan? Yes. Do you think that Daniel Bryan changing the belt? Do you think that's a smart thing to do?
I think it's a genius idea. Like, for one, I think him having his Planeteers, starting with biodiesel, is a fantastic move. Like, I absolutely love the idea of Daniel Bryan kind of turning into this, I don't want to say eco-terrorist, but, just kind of that obnoxious, he's actually very similar to CM Punk in that straight edge society, where even though what he is saying is actually very logical and like, okay, this makes sense, he's just such a jerk about it that you're like, you're still a bad guy. So Bryan doing all of this is fantastic. I have no problem with it. I think the way they set up the Elimination Chamber was great. Shout out to Samoa Joe. That was the promo of the year. That was fantastic. The only thing I'm concerned with is that something in the back of my mind tells me all of this is leading to Bryan's Cena at WrestleMania. And I don't want to see Cena get his 17th over Bryan. I don't want this entire title run to be just so Cena can get his moment at WrestleMania after that terrible match with Taker last year. But I don't really see much face challengers for him at WrestleMania. So unless you want to do Bryan versus AJ ad nauseum, does kind of seem like Cena's your only option right now.
Okay, I got a question for you since we were talking about the belt. Wouldn't it be funny if Daniel Bryan tries to cheat and then the belt breaks on John Cena? And then he's like, that's it. And then like somehow beats him holding up a broken belt. Do you think that would still count as a 17th win?
That I don't even know what to say to that. Yeah, no, that's probably going to actually happen. Yeah, no, that's so absurd and so ridiculous and so corny that I'm sure Vince McMahon right now, because I know you're listening, is writing that down and be like, this is the SmackDown WrestleMania main event, and Shane McMahon will be the special guest referee, and he'll count the 3. Because Shane's got to be involved in some high-profile match.
I want the tagline to be Captain Planet versus Captain America if it's Cena versus Bryan.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Oh, that is good.
I mean, I would love if they continue. I mean, I really want to hear the chant of Captain Planet when Daniel Bryan comes out. And the Planeteers, I mean, that's just great.
Could you imagine his WrestleMania entrance where you actually have 5 Planeteers and then he just comes up from underneath the stage wearing Captain Planet trunks? My body is ready.
Yep. No, I am absolutely ready. I want Don Cheadle to come out too.
Oh my God.
The Elimination Chamber is a great thing. I'm not so sure about the whole Rowan thing, but you know what? Why not? If they expand it and make it a better Wyatt Club, I guess I'll be all for it, and it'll be interesting to see what they do to lead up to WrestleMania.
Doug, real quick, who could Bray Wyatt be a part of Captain Planet?
Well, I think we determined that Rowan is Earth. It'd be interesting. Fire? Because his place burnt down?
I thought that would be Kane.
Yeah, Kane had to be fire. It fits better.
Well, if Kane's going to be in the Planeteers, yes. I'm just thinking of logical people that would actually be put into this because they're trying to put a new promo onto Bray Wyatt. So it'll be interesting to see.
I think he'd be Water because he's from the swamp.
There you go.
That would be a good one. I don't know who they're going to have him face. I think that's kind of the big thing. I think he's going to retain at Elimination Chamber. I don't see a way that he's not going to retain. The downside is, though, is the who's next. And like Roger said, realistically, the only credible face right now is John Cena. You could potentially have somebody from SmackDown move over. I don't think that's going to be the case, though. And if they did, you have to have somebody that is on that level. Let's say Finn Balor moved over. That would feel more like an IC title match then. I hate to say it, but it really would. And so you have to make it feel like a big match. And I think the only one really is John Cena. And that's unfortunate because I don't want him to win his 17th off of Daniel Bryan. I also don't want him to, win that title either. Like John Cena's probably going to get 17 at some point in time. However, though, do you really want him to hold up a wooden title I don't know. I don't really want him to. I think that'd be kind of a little cheesy, a little silly, but I guess we'll see what happens.
You're not looking forward to the Bella versus Bella feud? Because it'd be all about the Bellas. Oh, yeah. Yeah, this would turn into a total Bellas segment every week. Let's see how the brother-in-laws fight over the championship. Tune in next week while Nikki and Brie cry.
Yep.
I hate the Bellas.
But yeah, so let's move on to Becky and Ronda. So Becky chose Ronda immediately. It was just, she came out of Raw and said, I'm challenging you. That was it. She said, what was it? If I'm correct, she said that she would find her way back to her. And I thought that was interesting. I'm like, okay, so this entire storyline actually makes sense. Who came up with it? Because you know that the people on Raw really did not. But I'm excited about this because we have now like 3 months to go till WrestleMania. And I'm wondering how this is going to all end. Because there's all those rumors going around. But at the same time, maybe WWE planted those rumors on purpose. So then everyone would put money on Becky and not Ronda. But I don't know. Aaron, what do you think about it?
So I'll probably say this at some other point in time, but I think Nia Jax breaking Becky's face was the best thing to happen to her. It's the Daniel Bryan moment of him not being a part of the John Cena, Randy Orton feud. This was one of the best things to have happen because it turned her into somebody who was over to massively over. She's not Daniel Bryan over at WrestleMania 30, but she is still very over. And to see what she has accomplished since then, it really says a lot about the character that they've made for the man. And I really love it. I love the fact that she chose her right away. I love that they were spitting fire against each other. I actually am really excited for it because I don't feel like there's not going to be a match yet. There's probably not going to be a tag match or anything like that. I think that this is one, for the 2-3 months that you have to build this up, you can actually do a nice slow burn. And I feel like you can do something to make people interested in it. Like their segment, I feel is must see. I think that's the important thing is when I tuned into Raw this past Monday, that was the thing I was looking forward to the most. I had a feeling that Becky was going to be there, and to see what she came out and did, it was like, okay, I'm going to watch next week. I'm going to watch next week and next week and next week. That is what you want to do. That is how you build a good program. And when I talk about it, like to other people, I actually will say, oh, you got to see what Becky Lynch did. And that's something that I really haven't said in a long time, other than maybe Daniel Bryan was probably the last person I ever said that about. And so kudos to WWE for crafting this in such a way that made people interested.
No, this will be interesting to see just because of, like Aaron pointed out, you won't see tag matches of Becky versus Ronda or this and that. This is something we're actually going to see them fight probably for the first time at WrestleMania. So I'm very interested to see what they do. Whether they try to throw people in the way of Becky to try to take her chance, or whether they throw people at Ronda to, challenge for the title to see who's really going to go to WrestleMania. I actually think it would be funny if they did at Fastlane or Elimination Chamber, have Becky interfere in a match just to make sure Ronda kept the title, just so it is Ronda versus Becky at WrestleMania.
I'm going to have to disagree with you on this, Aaron. I don't think Nia breaking Becky's face was good at all. In fact, I think it would have been better had you had Becky do exactly what Charlotte did, which allegedly was the plan finish. Becky absolutely destroys Ronda at the end with the kendo stick, which then gives Ronda the motivation to interfere at TLC. Then you have Becky win the Rumble, and now you actually have a very hot feud. I know that people love the first-time matches at WrestleMania. You know what the greatest main event at WrestleMania was? Rock versus Austin. Was that the first time they faced off? No. Did it matter? Not in the slightest. People want to see the two best people in matches. It doesn't necessarily matter if it's a first-time thing. It matters of whether or not the crowd wants to see it. Shawn Brett wasn't the first time they fought. People loved it. Becky has been over from the moment that she turned on Charlotte at SummerSlam. She has been massively over. She's been getting cheered. I mean, you saw the WWE basically try to force a heel turn down their throats, and the crowd just went like, no. We're not going to cheer Charlotte. As a matter of fact, they may have even sacrificed a little bit of Charlotte's popularity trying to do this stupid heel turn. So I'm glad that Ronda won the Rumble, or Becky won the Rumble, but I don't think she needed her face broken by Nia in the slightest, and I don't even think that helped her character. I think, if anything, that probably helped Charlotte stay in the main event scene, because I think she has a chance of being in this triple threat because she has a beef with Ronda. Without that, she really has no business in this. So I think that helped stave Charlotte from being pushed down to the second tier match.
I think though, and I hear what you're saying. I think the one thing that would have happened though, had Becky been, faced her at Survivor Series, is that we probably would see Charlotte winning here and then inserting Becky somehow. And I think that's the issue, is because WWE would have been like, oh, Charlotte's the one that, people want to see. And we would potentially see something along those lines. And, obviously we don't want to see that. And I think we had talked about even last year at WrestleMania that they're probably going to be doing a Charlotte versus Ronda Rousey match at next year's WrestleMania. And it kind of seemed like that's the route that they were going to go down. And I think that's why Charlotte probably would have won Royal Rumble had Nia Jax not broken Becky Lynch's face.
Prior to the heel turn, I would have agreed with you. But Charlotte got booed enough that I don't think they're really all that keen on having a match where both participants don't really get cheered. Like that Survivor Series match, for example, wasn't that hot until Charlotte went nuts. Like if you go back and rewatch it, the crowd didn't really care. They wanted, I think they even chanted, "We want Becky." So do you think they really want to do a WrestleMania main event potentially where the crowd is chanting for the one person who's not in there? Because we've been to WrestleManias where that's happened, and I'm pretty sure they don't look back on Hunter versus Roman as a very fond matchup.
No, but it is WWE, and I mean, they try to force things down our throats, so you never know.
They also listen to our show. So let's move on to the IC title. Lashley won it from Ambrose, and nothing's really happened since that with the title. So, Roger, who would your top 3 contenders be to basically go for the IC title?
3 contenders? Have they ever even had 3 contenders?
No, I was trying to think of 3, and that was the problem. Like, well, he could do Finn, but I think that's almost a step down for him. But then, do you want to put it on, Strowman for the time being, or do you want to put it? I was trying to think of people on Raw. I was like, oh, I mean, you could put it on this guy, but I'm not sure who to put it on at this point.
I mean, I would have said Elias, but is he turning heel?
I think he's trying. I think that's the thing. I think they're trying to see, can we turn him heel? But again, the crowd's like, no, we are not doing that.
For a company that's devoid of genuine baby faces, Elias was doing a pretty good job of getting over as a face. I don't understand why they would turn him, because I would have said he should have been the number 1 contender to the IC Championship. It's a perfect spot for him. Behind him, I don't know who else on the Raw card. Braun Strowman, I guess. If he's not really doing anything else for WrestleMania, assuming they're not going to have him tag with a 10-year-old again, which I guess at this point is a 50-50 proposition. Braun Strowman would be my number 2 choice. And then where are we going after that? Maybe Cedric Alexander from 205 Live gets the Mustafa Ali treatment and shot up. I mean, that title has not been built up as important. And I guess Dolph Ziggler would be default number 3, because whenever you want to ruin something, you just put Dolph Ziggler in it. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's a tough thing with the IC title picture. It's just a tough. You're right. I think they've hurt that title, and they need to do something to almost get people's interest back into it, because that's the number 1 title technically on Raw, and it's not. And
is it really though?
I mean, the Universal title is, but it's not there.
I would have said the women's.
I would argue the women's championship has significantly surpassed the IC title as the number 1 championship on Raw.
All right. So
Ronda Rousey is a bigger star than anyone who's held the IC championship since, I don't know.
Rollins.
I think Ronda's a bigger star than Rollins.
Which is funny because we were just talking about Rollins being the face of the company.
But I mean, who do we think is going to be in the main event? It might be Ronda, which is weird to say if Seth's going against Brock, but that's how much faith they have in Ronda to carry the company potentially, or at least this match, I should say, that Ronda could be in the main event with Becky Lynch as opposed to Seth, who's getting the number 1 draw in the company and yet still might not be in the main event. Which is another reason why I don't necessarily think Seth is winning. If you're going to have him on the undercard, perfect time for Brock to win.
Okay, let's just say Ronda and Becky, that's the main event for WrestleMania. Let's just say that's what it is. Is it going to be Becky that wins then? Or will they even put... Because to me, if that's the main event, they're going to somehow put Charlotte in that match. Because they're going to say, oh, no, those 2 can't carry it. But, Charlotte, her dad did, so he can carry it. So we got to throw her in there because of that. I guess that's my dilemma with that title.
I think if Charlotte is in the match, Becky has a chance to win.
Oh, so you don't think that Becky will win if she's not in the match?
Correct. I mean, that would basically mean that Becky Lynch would be elevated over every other person who's in the WWE because no one has beaten Ronda yet. No one. All of the horsewomen have gotten beat. Charlotte lost by disqualification. She's the only one who hasn't gotten pinned. But if you have her in a triple threat, it's a perfect way for her to lose the title, step away. You can come back and do the Becky versus Ronda rematch later down the road. And Charlotte, they don't have a problem with her taking a pinfall from Becky because that continues their rivalry. It does seem to work out perfectly.
Well, Doug, what do you think about the second title on Raw? I mean, what do you think they're going to do with it? Like, who are the next contenders?
I really don't know either. And I think that's the shame of this is I would say Kevin Owens, if you were to bring him back before WrestleMania. I think that would be even a good thing to do, is to have him versus Bobby Lashley, since it was Lashley that technically, quote unquote, injured him and pushed him off of Raw. But until they start getting some people back, Elias is the best chance, I guess, that they have at somebody making a decent match out of it.
Yeah, and I would agree with Doug and Roger with what they said. The problem is with Elias, he's cutting heel promos after he went face, and I don't quite get that with WWE. I don't understand what their logic is behind that, why they have somebody who is, like, they got over organically, and people are liking them, and then they're like, you know what, I think we want more heels. I think we need to have an overabundance of heels, despite the fact that this person is actually getting real cheers. It's stupid. I don't quite get it.
I am kind of curious, though, if his promo that he did right before the start of the Rumble match wasn't just to make sure that Jeff Jarrett got cheered, or that aspect of they really wanted to create the magical moment that was in Seattle when he made fun of the Supersonics. The only problem is that people in Arizona don't even care about the Diamondbacks, because I was being told, I asked my sister about it, who lives in Arizona, and I said, yeah, they made the joke about this. And she goes, really? Because that's funny, because my coworker who made that joke before even the whole event started. Just when they announced that it was going to be in Chase Field, she's like, yeah, it's probably going to be more people than they see all year for Diamondbacks games.
That's good.
Moving away from the Aaron, what are your thoughts on the IC title? Can you even name three?
No, I mean, it would be the same people that has already been said. And I mean, I kind of feel the same way with the US title too, because and this is the problem with too many titles, unfortunately they can lose meaning, and then you kind of lose. Oh wait, who has the title again? And Nakamura, had it. He loses to Rusev. Rusev loses back to Nakamura. Nakamura loses it to R-Truth, which is just. You have somebody who was main eventing Wrestle Kingdom matches, with the in IWGP Heavyweight Championship over in NJPW, and then he's wrestling AJ Styles, and he's wrestling some other people as well. And I was thinking, wow, he's wrestling R-Truth. All right, well, this should be an easy, and they did a great job of the finish, because it looked like there was a lot of chaos there. And it was like, oh, wait, R-Truth, wait, was this, planned? What's going on there? So that was well done. But then R-Truth not only beats Nakamura, but he beats Rusev as well. It doesn't make any sense. Like, I don't understand why R-Truth is getting this title, and no disrespect to him. He is a tremendous wrestler, but the character that they've portrayed him as, it's almost the equivalent of having a No Way Jose win that title.
I would argue the U.S. title has more contenders logically, though, because they built up other stories. Rey Andrade, both of them are logical contenders. Mustafa Ali is a logical contender. Like, you actually have some guys who've been in other programs, who've been showcased. It wouldn't be, you could even argue Randy Orton can be thrown in there. Like, you could see like a purpose for the U.S. Championship, whereas the IC title, there's no other feud besides like Baron Corbin versus the fans. There's really no one else who's been built up. I mean, Drew McIntyre, we forgot about him, but I don't know if he even cares about the IC title. It's just, kind of it shows you the difference in philosophy between SmackDown and Raw, where SmackDown has been trying to build up multiple people and multiple feuds so that you can kind of seamlessly weave them in and out, whereas Raw is, it is what it is.
What about Baron Corbin versus Charisma?
I think Charisma has gone over every time.
No, I got nothing else to add on that one.
I really got nothing either. You guys said it all with that. Going next to the tag titles with Bobby Roode and Chad Gable. Who do you think the next contender will be for them, Roger?
If it's not the Revival, I don't care. And the reason I say that is I don't actually know how many tag teams are on Raw. Authors of Pain, I know one of them's hurt. I think Heavy Machinery's on SmackDown.
No, they're on Raw.
Are they on Raw? Because they were in the Fatal 4-Way on SmackDown.
Oh, no, you're right. They are SmackDown.
So who? Lucha House Party? Meh. Like, both of those guys I'd love to see do something better than this. But the Revival, I would argue, need these tag team championships, or they need to go. So the Revival and then the Revival.
Yeah, I think that there's no other teams other than the Revival. But the one I'm more interested in, and Doug, I don't know if you know of any tag teams that would be a good contender, but we have McMiz.
Oh,
Are they going to hold the titles until WrestleMania, do you think? And if so, who's going to take the titles off?
I will, after watching them actually win that match, I will say I hope that they do hold on to those titles until WrestleMania. That way you give like more people that opportunity to fight Shane McMahon. Also, Shane's getting up there. He really shouldn't be wrestling anymore. So what better way to have him do his WrestleMania moment than have Miz do 90% of the match and then Shane do his couple of spots here and there just to get a match over. So I can see them holding on to the titles until then.
You know, I want to bring something up about Shane too that I've realized more so than anything. I don't think Shane McMahon's not a wrestler. Well, just that's a given.
He's the best wrestler. That's what you meant to say, right?
He's a spot guy. And when you think about it, yeah, he can sort of go, but there's other guys in the back that can go better than he can all day long. And he'll have like 2 or 3 spots, and then that's it. But the thing is, he can't do that all the time on SmackDown. He would people want to see those spots over and over. They want to see the coast to coast. You know, they want to see him do a big elbow through an announcer's table. That's what they want to see. If he doesn't deliver that, the fans, I think, will crap on it. So I just, him having the belt is crap. I think it would be funny if they did something where, and I have to throw the Usos out there because they're the only ones I can think of, have the Usos come out and basically beat the crap out of him, and then have him do like that thing where he comes down from the back or whatever, and you know, he thinks he's going to get the hot tag, and then, you know, they just crap on him again. I think that would be the only way to save it, but, you know, that's the picture. I mean, I can't think of anything else to really say about the tag titles over there, unless the Revival comes over there and wins them. So, but anywho, so let's move on to our sponsor, HostGator. Are you a blogger or podcaster, or you're just not happy with your web host? You need to check out HostGator.com. You're going to find web hosting made easy and affordable. HostGator offers unlimited disk space, unlimited bandwidth, one-click strip installs of free site builder, hands on the best control panel out there. Stop by today and try free demo so easiest, and if you use a special coupon code off the mark, you're going to save 25% off your web hosting packages. So what are you going to lose? Check out HostGator.com and take a bite out of your web hosting costs. Also, make sure you check out Section 86's off the mark page and click on the banner at the top to say big on items from WWEshop.com. All right, let's just talk about NXT. The whole Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano, Mr. Wrestling, or Johnny Wrestling. Aaron, I want you to start this off. What do you think? Do you think that when they came in originally, they were getting over and they were really over, and then all of a sudden, it's like they're feuding against each other after DIY? Do you think that almost 2-year build was the smartest thing they could have done for these two guys?
Yeah, and I think I had said about Kenta is that, you know, unfortunately the injury bug for him was actually a curse instead of a blessing. Tommaso Ciampa, it was the reverse. And having to wait that long to finally get that match was well worth it. And I liked Ciampa when he was in Ring of Honor. I thought that he looked good, but I always felt that he was, you know, undersized. I mean, that was the kind of the drawback with him, is that he was, you know, he was shorter. And Johnny Wrestling, from the start, I did not know about him. I did not know anything about him. So when he came to WWE, it was like a brand new person for me. And I was definitely drawn to him, and I thought that he had that really good white meat baby face. And for his arc that has been going on has been tremendous. I actually love the storytelling they've been doing with him. Whenever NXT is on, that is the segment I have to watch. It is like, he is somebody that when he's on the TV, you need to see what's going on. And I think that that's really great to see what they've been doing with them. I'm interested in the ride. Like, the ride itself is great. Like, that's the thing I think I really like about it, is that the ride is worthwhile. Whereas some of the other storylines, you're kind of like, oh, okay, you know, this is kind of a traditional thing, and it's fine if it's traditional. You know, when you watch a superhero movie, the superhero wins, and that's okay. But when there's like an excitement to it, and like there is right now with Gargano and Ciampa, it's must see, and that's the thing I love the most about them.
I'll be interested to see if they bring back Gargano as a babyface, and whether this is the complete run of this is him to finally get the NXT championship and to get it from Ciampa. I think that would be an amazing end to the story. But at the same time, I also think, why do we have to end the story? Why not bring back a heel DIY? Why not keep this ball rolling in NXT. Keep it fresh in NXT, and just keep this going. Keep the NXT branded separate from SmackDown and Raw, and let them do their own thing.
I think the story needs to end because there's one conclusion that will be just, I don't even, euphoric maybe is the word. If you think about what we saw at the end of NXT when Gargano came out with Ciampa and they both held up the belts, it was a callback to the DIY days. Well, the moment when Gargano comes out and grabs Ciampa by the hair and says, "I win," and throws him into the stage, you may hear the loudest pop you've ever been a part of, because that crowd is going to go absolutely wild for Johnny turning back into the old Johnny, but this time maybe a more vicious Johnny who's more willing to go to Ciampa's level to beat him. It'd be a fantastic redemption story. Those kind of things always work. They connect with the fans. And yeah, I think it needs to end where it began. 2 years later, Johnny beats Ciampa in Chicago for the championship. You talk about a true fairy tale ending. That would be fantastic. And is trying not to be cynical, but let us be honest. When they leave NXT, their ceilings are significantly lowered. It just is what it is. They likely won't get the same attention, the same spotlight, or even the same storytelling when they move to Raw or SmackDown or 205 Live. So let them play out this story at NXT. Let it get the send-off that it deserves. Let Johnny get the run that we want him to have, so that, when they're on the main roster, because you look at someone like Andrade, that's not a bad spot for him right now, but it took a while and he really was kind of dead on arrival. I suspect those two will probably have the same problem.
I hope that it ends like in Survivor Series in Chicago. That's where I really hope it does. I'm not Survivor Series, but at War Games. And I think that's what you meant by being done in Chicago. But, my horrible thing that I think that they would do is some way, somehow, they would get them to come up and be a tag team on Raw, and they'll think, oh, all these people will watch Raw. And then I'm like, no. Like, that would be the only thing I'd want to see on Raw. But I like the arc. I like the fact that I got to, Doug and I both got to see it start, and then we might have seen it end at the same time. But I thought that was really cool. But, what do you do with someone like Dream? I mean, like, what are they going to do with him? Is he NXT for life, or is he going to be, or do they have to bring him up? And do you bring him on Raw because he's so over on NXT? Oh, he'll be okay on Raw. I mean, that's the next wrestler I can think of. Roger, do you think that Dream would succeed on the main roster?
No, I don't. Not at all. I don't think Vince gets that character. I don't think he understands how to properly use him. I think he would be closer used to something like Adam Rose, or worse, maybe even like Goldust, but in a PG era where he's basically just doing stupid stuff. I think he's 23. Like, Patrick Clark is not old. They don't have to rush him up there. He could be in NXT for 2 more years. Because as much as I like Dream, obviously his takeover matches have been fantastic, but there's still probably some work that needs to be done. Those are against, very high caliber opponents, probably very heavily practiced. So he's going to need some time before he's probably doing week in and week out great matches. And that's fine. Look, I've said this before. The roster is packed right now. You don't need to rush any call-ups. So putting a guy like Dream up there, it's like calling up a minor league pitcher before he's ready and you've got enough aces on the staff. If you don't have a spot for him, you don't have a story for him, don't call him up. Let him stay in NXT. Let him get a run with the North American Championship. Let him get a run with the NXT Championship. Let him flesh out the character more. And maybe if we're lucky, Vince has handed over control to Hunter. That's probably the best bet for Dream to get over on the main roster.
It's interesting. We mentioned who's the next contender for the Intercontinental title. What are they doing with the U.S. title? And yet you get down to NXT, you have a North American title and you have a championship title. And yet you still have more people that can do just straight up feuds, whether that be Dream, Adam Cole, Aleister Black. You have all these people that you don't even need to see them in a title match, and it's going to be a good match. It's amazing that NXT, they don't have this problem. And unless you want to get rid of a majority of the rosters on Raw or SmackDown, that's why I say keep NXT their own brand. Keep them down there. Let them do their own thing. Let them continue to thrive as they have.
Yeah, there's people that are in NXT right now that I think should not be called up almost ever. Like they should stay there as long as they can. And I think of somebody like a Ciampa, Gargano, a Dream, and even Ricochet, I think should stay there as long as he can. Because I think if they brought him up, they would just put him on 205 Live and then say, oh, he's going to do that flippy stuff. I think that you keep them down there. And even an Aleister Black, I think that he has had really great booking, and the match with him and Velveteen Dream really showcases how you can have a match that gets both people over tremendously. Because like Dream, and I always thought Dream was okay. I liked him better than Black, but that match, Dream looked amazing, and in that match, Black looked amazing, and that's what you want to do. And I feel on the main roster, you're not going to really get something like that. You're not going to get the time, or as Roger said, you're not going to get somebody that understands the characters. And Adam Cole, I think he'll get called up at some point in time. He'll probably bring the Undisputed Era with him, and then they can run roughshod on Raw or SmackDown. And I think that would be good. I actually think that they will do well on the main roster, and their time is probably coming sooner rather than later, would be my guess. But yeah, I think that Dream is one of those guys that you keep him down there even for like 3 years, I think would be totally fine.
So you bring up an interesting point about Undisputed Era running roughshod. None of those guys are big. Like, none of them. Part of me thinks they would get destroyed on Raw. Like, absolutely treated like jokes. And, I mean, you look at two guys like the Authors of Pain, who are monsters, and they had been treated meh. There's no way they're going to let Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly and Roderick Strong and Bobby Fish run roughshod. They would get buried by whenever Roman returns or Braun Strowman or any of the top guys that they care about. There's no way the Undisputed are going to be allowed to do what they did on NXT on Raw or SmackDown. There's just no way.
Well, on SmackDown, they could potentially. And there's strength in numbers, and of course, the Nexus did have some big guys in there. But, when you have a group of, 4 individuals, 4-on-1 isn't going to really help out 4-on-2 even. They could potentially do some damage, though, don't you think?
Well, how'd the Nexus work out for them?
To start, great.
Yeah. Daniel Bryan is currently the WWE champion, so
Absolutely. And let me ask you, when they faced Cena, how many times did they beat Cena? Was it 0?
That's why they got to go to SmackDown.
Aaron has no memory of that.
I see. Yeah, I mean, that would be my concern, right? Like, you could definitely do a 4-on-1 and let them run roughshod over AJ and Joe and Ray and Andrade, and that would be fine. But you put them on Raw. You don't think Brock would somehow F5 all 4 of them? Because I could totally see it happening.
Oh, gosh.
I actually want to see that. I would love to see a 4-man F5.
They would do that. They would so do that.
Or
Well, on Raw, they would turn them into, like, the 3-man band. They'd be a 4-man band. They would ruin them on Raw. But
How's
yeah, I mean, like,
doing?
yeah, Insanity's not doing well. But Eric Young isn't gonna be selling merch the same way that Adam Cole is.
That's what I was going to bring up. So, Roger, what if their merchandise sales are so up there that they have to push them properly? Otherwise, people will just stop buying the merch, which then the shareholders will be upset about that. So then they have to push them. Do you think that will play into something with the Undisputed Era?
ask CM Punk how much your merch sales matter.
What about Rusev Day?
And you know what? I give Rusev credit that he forced himself back into the WrestleMania card to take a pinfall and then was basically forgotten about over the summer. I mean, look, there are some people who've been able to break that glass ceiling, Becky Lynch being the perfect example, Daniel Bryan, guys who've gotten through. But unfortunately, we know that one characteristic of the WWE is stubbornness, and they will push who they want to push pretty much regardless of what you want. And I love the Undisputed Era, and I think they should be treated as the modern-day NWO. I would love to see Adam Cole be a future World Heavyweight Champion. But let us be honest, how many guys have we talked about who said there's no way these guys should fail on the next level? The Revival had the match of the year. Right now we're talking about how they should leave to AEW. American Alpha was one of the best teams we'd seen in NXT. They were basically useless the moment Jordan. I mean, it's just they have proven one thing is that they don't know how to use the people from NXT. And yes, the Undisputed Era, look, we were at NXT. It was Undisputed Era shirts basically lining the row in front of us. That's all you could see as far as the eye could see was Adam Cole or the Undisputed Era. They are over. They have great merch. They have great chants. They have everything, which means the WWE can find a way to screw it up. You just know they would find a way to mess them up on Raw and then turn them into a joke or turn them into just nothing but whipping boys. I mean, how much do they value tag teams right now? Who are the tag team champions? It's Bobby Roode and Chad Gable, Shane McMahon, and The Miz. Not a single true tag team owns a tag team championship except the War Raiders on NXT. That tells you how much they value tag teams and stables.
All right, so Roger, I'm going to start with you on this. Can you name 3 guys on NXT that could succeed no matter what?
No matter what?
Not no matter what, but you do not see a way they could screw it up.
I would say, are we counting UK in this?
Well, I'll say UK too, yeah.
I feel like it would be very, very hard for them if they truly wanted to call up like Walter because he's a bigger guy who's got the chops. I think he would be safe. Wow. See, the problem with it that NXT seems to value smaller guys who can go, and that is not what they've really valued on the main roster. Like, I think Ricochet would be fine in the sense that they would give him a nice spot on 205 Live, but I would argue that's screwing him up because I think he should be a major player on one of the main shows. But yeah, he would probably be the cruiserweight champion, and he would tear it up in the pre-show. So I guess you would say they wouldn't ruin him, but he deserves better than what they would give him. I mean, look at what they did to Neville. I want to say Matt Riddle because he's got a good look, but man, I just feel like with the combination of him liking to smoke some weed and them not necessarily being maybe the biggest fan of that because Vince is from a very different generation. Matt Riddle's the closest thing I guess they'd have to a sure thing than anyone in NXT, in my opinion.
Doug, same question to you.
I don't believe that WWE cannot mess up anything. They'll mess up everything, and it doesn't matter. The closest person I think that is almost untouchable would be Adam Cole. Just because I think the crowd would be that much into him. Maybe not even as the Undisputed Era, but just Adam Cole by himself would be the only one that could, I guess, survive and thrive.
I agree with Doug. I think Adam Cole is the one that's going to be the closest. And with what Roger said with Matt Riddle, I think that is very true. Matt Riddle will probably be number 2 for me, but Adam Cole, because of his look, size is going to hurt him, but he has charisma out the wazoo. He is, as Roger said many times, modern day Shawn Michaels. And if you have that, like, go for it. If you have somebody they could use for 10 years, if you maybe hits the weights a little bit more and gets a little bit more size, but, of course he's, probably like 5'9", 5'10". So he's got that going against him, but I think he could do wonders on the main roster.
Okay, I was gonna say I thought Roger was throwing out Tony Storm, which I thought was like, oh yeah, she's definitely gonna make it.
They could definitely screw her up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
No woman is safe. Like, anyone who's not Charlotte Flair has a chance to be screwed up, or Ronda Rousey. That's about it.
Okay. I was thinking Cole. Riddle would be a good one as well because I think it's just because of the look. I think that is the only thing they have going for him. And I never thought about Walter because I thought that maybe they would keep him down there for a while. But I was trying to think of a third one. And that's
Dunn would be another one that would be as close safe, I would argue, because he has a very Daniel Bryan like feel, and because Bryan already existed, I could see Pete Dunne stepping into that physical, smaller, bruiserweight type role. But it also wouldn't surprise me if they booked him the same way they booked Neville.
Yeah. I think I really, if you, like I said, I think I can only think of the two that I feel were going to be safe. And that's why I was like, okay, who's that third one? But I thought Tony Storm still, I think, there's an argument there that they might not be able to, I think the fan backlash would hurt them even more. And I think she'd become a bigger star because of it. But, NXT's always been an interesting thing. And realistically, when you talk about tag teams, I think that they're going to send the War Raiders up way too soon. And I think that's going to screw them up. And, look at Authors of Pain. I mean, they were monsters. I mean, they had great matches on NXT, and then what happens? Revival, same thing. But overall, NXT, excited about it. The other thing, we discussed this at one point talking about NXT. Do you think that they could actually get away with having like a show that are like we'll say the AA in baseball, and then of course the regular NXT shows the AAA? Do you think it's time that they can get away with that at this point? I'll let Roger.
I mean, I love the idea of an NXT Live type show where you basically create a third brand, similar to what they wanted to do, I guess, with ECW, but obviously that was a complete disaster. But if you truly gave Hunter the control that he has on 205 Live, from what I hear, he's running the backstage, and you let them have a third show where they were touring and doing their own thing, put it on I don't think they have anything going on Thursdays right now that's live, so you could put it on there. Or I think SmackDown actually is moving to Fridays on Fox, so now that Tuesday slot could go to NXT Live on USA. Absolutely. I think it would be great. I think it'd be a good way, even if it was still the third, so let's call it what they sometimes say is you have a quadruple A baseball player, right? He's not good enough necessarily for the major leagues, but he's too good for triple A. this is what NXT Live could be, where you have the guys who, hey, we don't understand how to use them on the main roster. Let's use them on our third show. Let's have it be a show that's more catered towards the hardcore fans. You're still going to have them tour. You can let them tear it up on, and then you can really start to split the pay-per-views again, because you don't need to have these combined brand pay-per-views all the time. Now you can start to have a Raw pay-per-view that's supplemented with NXT Live, a SmackDown pay-per-view that's supplemented with NXT Live, and then you can let them kind of just do their own thing. So, yeah, I think a third show would be absolutely fantastic. The only thing that would be the problem is that now you're talking about 3 hours of Raw, 2 hours of SmackDown, let's say even just 1 hour of NXT Live, 1 hour of NXT, 1 hour of NXT UK, 1 hour of 205 Live. That's just a lot of wrestling. And we're not even talking about during a pay-per-view week where you throw in another 6 hours for TakeOver and, whatever pay-per-view there is. You're going to get, something has to be cut out at that point, because the average viewer is not going to watch 12 hours a week of wrestling.
Well, that's what I'm wondering, if WWE is going to start thinking that's a great idea. But yeah, Doug, what do you think?
Wrestling 24/7 on the network. It's all wrestling all the time. Is that what we're going to get to eventually?
I think so.
I want them to keep NXT their own brand, keep NXT the same thing as they're doing. Whether they should have another show or something along those lines, I'm not so sure about it. Let NXT travel, sure. I have no problem with that. Let them travel a little bit more than what they're doing right now. But I'm sure there are plenty of people in NXT that aren't getting the screen time that they need or want. But that's why there are house shows, and that's why there are the indies, and that's why there are other things that are the access people. I have no problem with that. Let them develop their game on an Access or anything. Let them earn their way up into an NXT slot or something along those lines. I mean, because what did we have? We had what were those other 1 hour shows that WWE used to do or still do, but no one watched?
And Heat and things like that.
Main event.
Main event. I mean, I can't even remember the last time I watched or even heard about Main Event. Is that still a thing, Andy?
Yes, it is. But I don't watch it because I already know what happens.
I think that's what you're talking about here is those people that don't get on Raw, those people that don't get on SmackDown, they go to Main Event and they get their little time there.
I was talking more of a true third show, to be fair, like similar to WWE ECW. You had your own heavyweight championship, you had your own tag champion, like something where they would be the stars of this show, not like, hey, you're not good enough to get on Raw, here's Main Event where no one cares.
But isn't that what NXT is, really, though?
I think right now it's the developmental brand. I think it's a little bit, because I mean, like they count the, they don't say like Sammy's a former heavyweight champion. They say he's a former NXT champion.
Yeah.
So
well, they should all count it. They should remember that everything happened in NXT first, like the women's Iron Man match or other matches along those lines. But you know what? That happens. I wouldn't mind if more people went from Raw and SmackDown to NXT. I think they should be sent down to rejuvenate their career or make another name or at least get some airtime like a Zack Ryder. I think even at one point we said Dolph Ziggler should go down just because he doesn't need to be on Raw or SmackDown anymore.
So Aaron, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I definitely echo both Roger and Doug's thoughts. One of the things I think would be kind of helpful, because there's talent that are in NXT that, I remember Roger and I were at a house show in Seattle, and a couple of guys came out, and we both were like, who is that? And it was something we'd never heard of before. And I think that they could do like I don't think NXT should become an hour and a half. I don't think it should become 2 hours. I think an hour is perfect. But you could have a supplemental show. And similar to what Doug was saying about, like, you have that hour-long main event, do like a 30-minute thing for NXT, a 30-minute supplemental thing where it would essentially be like a main event, where you could have those additional people on there. And that's something for hardcore fans. That's not something you have to watch, right? Like, realistically, you can watch Raw and SmackDown and you're fine. You don't have to watch anything else that WWE does. So you don't have to watch main event or whatever crap, that they're doing. You just have to watch, Raw or SmackDown. Same thing with NXT. You only have to watch NXT, and there's these additional things that you can watch on top of it. So, yeah, I think that you could do a small 30-minute extra show.
Yeah, what I was getting at, what I was thinking that they could do. So they have this show called This Week in WWE. I think it airs on Saturdays. I don't watch it. It's only 30 minutes, but I was like, well, why don't they make that an hour and then throw like a a couple NXT matches on there as well, because NXT matches, they could do 15 minutes curtain to curtain all day long. So that was what I was thinking about, because then you don't have an extra show. You just they get people to watch that show because they recap what happened on Raw and SmackDown. Of course, if it has Roman Reigns in it, it's like 25 minutes of Roman Reigns and 5 minutes of everything else. But yeah, so that's I guess this time we have for this month's show. If you're into the Twitter, you can follow the show at AllTheMark86. I want to thank 86 Productions for hosting and editing the podcast, and I want to thank all of our listeners for taking the time to download and listen to the show. And for Roger Cave, Doug Hunt, and Aaron Hughes, I am Andrew Hughes, and until